Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Next Chapter podcast. This is Angela Rasmus. Now, this week we're having a conversation with the lovely Penny Fox. Now, Penny's a social media productivity coach, and she helps entrepreneurs and business owners with practical ways of harnessing the power of social media. Now, we all spend so much time online, but is it productive? Are we making the most of the tools that are available to us today? And are we spreading ourselves too thin and trying to get across all these different platforms when really we can pull back with a plan and make some choices about the ones that connect both, or best rather, with the way that we like to work and where our most aligned clients are likely to be? So Penny's got some wonderful insights to share for us, and in particular, she sees herself as a Pinterest queen, and it's an area that I'm getting a high level of interest in as well. So it was great to have this discussion with Penny. But of course, it did not start there. And what Penny takes us through are those first steps that she took out of corporate world when she started her own business with a great deal of fear, with a great deal of how the heck is this going to work? There was fear, and there had to have a lot of courage hot on its heels to take Penny through to where she is today with her wonderfully successful small business. Now, in between, some of the insights that Penny is sharing is that all of those experiences that we've had in our 20s and our 30s and our 40s, none of them were wasted. She could really see with that benefit of hindsight how every piece that we have in our lives contributes to obviously the people that we've become today, but also the wisdom that we can bring into our businesses. And embracing that as a concept allowed Penny to really expand, to take chances, to say yes to opportunities, even when she didn't feel she was quite ready. And let's be honest, we aren't until we actually jump in and get the experience. We're not really ready for anything. And that's okay. That's what next chapters are all about. It's stepping into this new version of ourselves. So I'm pretty sure you're going to really enjoy this conversation that we have. So without further ado, as they say, let's get stuck into this week's episode. Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus, and I'm so delighted that you're here.
Well, my next chapter, I can honestly say I've had more than my share of next chapters. I think the very first one happened when I quit my job at a corporate organization, and it was really interesting because I never thought of myself as a business owner. I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I never thought in my mind that as I was going to college, that this is where I was going to be in my life. You know, I was raised with the idea that you're supposed to have a corporate job. You're supposed to have an office and a 401k and an insurance plan and benefits and all of that. And I remember when I finally got my corporate job, my parents were so proud of me. They went and bragged about me to all of their friends. And when it finally came time for me to quit, between just realizing over and over again, looking at the way that the corporate world was working and the way that I worked, it was just a really bad fit. And it was a struggle for me. And I realized at a certain point that I'm just not a corporate person. I'm just not one of these people who can sit in a meeting and discuss for 3 hours what we're going to do. I'm more of the person that sees the problem and let's get it fixed right now. And I don't need us to send up a letter to our corporate office in Atlanta and get permission to do what we just spent 2 hours talking about doing. And it was just so frustrating to me that when I finally left and I started my own job, I can honestly tell you it took me a couple of weeks before I even told my parents that I had quit and started my own job because I just didn't want to disappoint them. And it's funny how we think about this. I think I was, at that age where I should be old enough so I shouldn't be thinking about disappointing my parents, but I did. And I've been in my business for myself now since 1999. And I honestly can't ever imagine going back to the corporate world again.
I love that realization that we just didn't fit. There was a mismatch going on here, and I hear that a lot, and I know that feeling myself as well. But isn't it interesting? And I don't know if it's common to everybody, but I do hear from a lot of women around our age, in our 40s and beyond, who had these particular stories and this particular background of how we should be and how things should be and all the boxes that we should tick. And it feels quite disconcerting initially when you realize that I just don't fit any longer. Did you find that you were thinking that for quite a while before you made the leap, or was this a real just moment of like, God damn it, I'm out of here?
Yeah, there was a couple of moments where I just questioned myself, and I must have had like a big, huge question mark over my head going, what just happened here? But it was a slow progression. I think part of the reason that it took me so long to leave was because there was this part of me that had been so ingrained in me. You go to college, you go do this, you get a job, and this is what you're supposed to do, that I kept thinking in my head, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I can't be upset with this place. Everybody hates their job sometimes. I get that. I can't leave just because I don't like my job. It just never crossed my mind that there was another option for me out there to start my own business. And so I stayed longer, probably a lot longer than I should have. But it was a series of events. And towards the very end, I was probably on the way out to get fired. And I've never been fired. Never in my life have I ever been fired. Even when I was like a teenager and I worked at a fast food restaurant, I've never been fired for a job. And I was not about to let them be the first people to do it. So I knew I had like 2 weeks of vacation time. And I took my 2 weeks vacation. And when I came back, I handed in my notice.
It was time to draw the line in the sand.
I was done.
It's interesting how you said that. It never crossed my mind that there was an option for me to start my own business, and I think there has been that involvement in that area, because certainly when I grew up and when I was at school back in New Zealand, and when we had career guidance counselors, etc., there was a really narrow definition even back then, which was the early 80s, about what I could do, about what women could do. I mean, the feminist uprising, if we like to call it in that way, and that drive for equality was bubbling under the surface, but it still hadn't, even at that late stage, made it through into you can do anything you want. That came a little later. I didn't have role models that I could see, very many role models of women starting their own businesses. And I think the barriers to entry in terms of what a business was and what you needed to actually have from a capital perspective to start a viable business was so different back then. And it's changed now. I mean, so many doors have opened. And when you were thinking about the thing that you were going to go towards in this particular next chapter, what sort of options became open to you? What began to attract you?
What I was interesting how I think when I first started my business, I just looked at it as, what am I doing right now? Yeah. What skill set do I have at this point that I can take and create something? And I just immediately thought of myself as, I guess I'm a consultant, because I have all this information and I know all this stuff. So how can I help people? And over the years, obviously since 1999, if I look at my business back then and I look at where I am right now, I'm completely different, which is part of those next chapters that have happened in my life.
Yeah.
But I knew when I left, I was just terrified, because I was thinking, obviously you're thinking, well, how am I going to get paid? Where am I going to get money from? How am I even going to go to the doctor? I don't have any insurance anymore. All those things that cross your mind that you didn't think about, back in the 90s when I did this was a completely different world than it is right now, where we have so many more options and the internet, where we can go online and we can connect with people and meet with people and get advice. There was nothing. I felt like I was just kind of alone and sort of beating it out on myself and saying, okay, well, that didn't work. Well, that one did. So let's go in that direction. So it was a lot of trial and error, I would say, from the very beginning of my business.
That part there, the concept of the trial and error, I think is something that really needs to be heard. I mean,
I really see our businesses, our next chapters as evolutions. And I was very similar to you when I left corporate world and I went, okay, what are my skills? What can I do? I was in marketing in corporate land, and so I became a marketing consultant. And it was just, that was like the first logical step. It was, what are my skills? What am I good at? Where is there a need in the market? Boom, I'll start there. Now, I could never in a million years could have imagined what I'd be doing today. You know, on the outside, it's not so different. I mean, I guess in a way I'm sort of consulting to women in business, but it's a world away from what I used to do. So listening to that idea of it's trial and error, it's start where you are with what you have now, and then just start to evolve. And I guess, were you following your nose a little bit, following your heart as in what feels good? You know, what am I drawn to? How did the evolution happen for you?
I honestly think that I stumbled upon a lot of these things. I would meet somebody and she would say, well, marketing. And quite honestly, when I was in my corporate job I worked in radio, and I worked for a big, huge radio company. And so I had this one woman come to me and say, well, radio. And she said, I need some help to put together a radio schedule for somebody. Have you ever done that? And I said, well, not really, but I can figure it out. I knew enough about radio to figure it out. And from that point on, and up until this day even, I still do work as what I call a media buyer, where I help people negotiate radio, cable, TV, print, online, anything else I can think of. And that all stemmed from that moment of saying yes. I didn't really know how to do the job she was asking me, and I didn't know if I could do it, but I knew enough that, and I'm going to say this and you're probably going to laugh, I knew enough to fake it. So there was enough of me that I knew inside that I could fake it. And as I started to move through the process, and I thought, I'm really good at this. Hey, I figured out something I can do. And so one of the things I think I've noticed throughout the years is there are times when people have come to me and asked me to do something, and I've never done it before. And so I'll look at them and go, sure, I'll do it. And then I'll just kind of, oh my God, what did I just say yes to? Oh, holy crap. Now I got to figure out how to do this. And sometimes it works and sometimes not so much. But I think a lot of it is the idea of trusting yourself enough to say yes.
That's a biggie. That part there is a really big one. And I've heard this often. And I actually really believe that one of our biggest jobs at this stage is to learn to trust ourselves, because it's so easy to say no. It's so easy to pull back. It's so easy and safe to go, that's not for me. But how do we know if we don't try? How do we develop the skills if we don't take the chance? I mean, no one is an expert the first time that they do anything. And I think that's the thing that holds us back as women, speaking as a collective, and I don't like speaking in stereotypes, but I do see patterns. And there's no doubt that we hold ourselves back until we think we've got it right, or until it's perfect, or all the ducks are in a row. And sometimes when you do that, you miss the boat.
I would agree with that. A lot of things have come through my path, and had I waited until I thought I could do it, or I took a class to train me to do this, I would have not been able to participate and really learn new skills.
Yeah, and you learn the new skills in the doing. And that's the interesting thing, isn't it? When you actually take the chance and step out in faith, then that builds your confidence a little bit more. And then the next stepping stone, you're more likely to jump onto it a little bit quicker. So I guess the big piece of advice that we're sharing here is just do it. A bit of Nike there, but just do it. Just take the chance. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen?
The worst that can happen, and trust me, I've had this happen, is you fail in public. And the thing that I've noticed, that the moments that I have failed, that I had built it up so big in my head, I can't fail. And then when it has happened, I can look around and say, wait a minute, nothing took my life down. I'm still here. I'm still moving forward. Everybody who's still, following me, connected to me, working with me, is still following me, connected to me, and working with me. Nobody looked at me like, oh, she failed. I don't want anything to do with her now. I almost think sometimes that we let the idea of, oh my God, I could fail in public, turn a yes into a no because of that reason. And that's just a totally wrong reason to say, no to something.
Without a doubt. And I think part of that is that we are our own harshest critics. I think we judge ourselves on higher standards than we apply to anybody else. We're so much more forgiving of others and allowing more levity and more space to move, but not for ourselves. Why do you reckon that is? Why do we have that default position of sort of smacking ourselves on the head?
I go back to, I can only say for me personally, I go back to the way I was raised. And I don't want to say it's perfection, but it was like, oh, you got all B's. Next time you need to get all A's. Oh, you got, 4 A's and 2 B's. You still need to get all A's. There was always this moment of you can do better, this expectation. And sometimes I think that, I think you and I were raised in a certain time during the 80s. It wasn't so much of a huge push like it is right now, where there's more of an equality happening, but we as women had to push even harder. And so what men could do to get by, we as women had to do twice as much. And so I think the way we were raised, at least I know for me personally, that we were raised with this idea of do more, push harder. And that's what we've got. That's the thing that's going round and round and round in our head. That's the message. That's the story that we're hearing, is that, okay, well, that was good, but I could do more. What could I do more? And so I believe that we are internalizing it so much that we are our own worst critic.
Yeah, that's definitely what, I know I've experienced that personally, and it's something that I've been working on letting go, and I'm getting better at it, but there's still those vestiges and those memories that are still sitting there about the striving side of things, for sure. So that's something we all need to learn to lighten up a little bit on ourselves. Yeah, but I guess the great thing, when you were talking before about, taking the risk, trying something, if you fail, hey, so you fail. There's no children have been harmed in this incident, so you can keep on moving forward. But I think another important thing, that when you say yes to more opportunities, you get the opportunity to find out if that's something that you're actually drawn to. Like, until you experience it, it's difficult. So a lot of people think about, well, I don't know what I want to do. I'm not sure what my purpose is, what my next chapter is. But you've got to find out, I believe, what you don't want before you can start defining what you do want. And it obviously became clear to you that when you're in corporate land, what you didn't want to do anymore. So as you started to take those risks or try those new things, did you find yourself then being able to refine more and more about the things that did appeal and how you would change and evolve your business and yourself?
Oh, yes, completely. And now I'm looking back, having been in business for myself for so long, and just, I guess, in the working world too, I guess I would say, for so long, that I can see now the things that I've done in my 20s and the things that I've done in my 30s, and then the things I've done in my 40s, moving into my 50s, how connected it is. And had I not done this one particular thing, I would not be able to do this. But at the time that I was doing those things, doing those jobs, learning those skills, I didn't think in my mind how it was going to take me to do these other things. But now looking back on it, I can see how everything's connected, how everything fell into place. And I didn't know where I was going at the time, but the fact that I was saying yes to that enabled everything to get connected and to have one thing lead into one thing, lead into the one, to the one, to the one, to get to where I am right now. And there were moments where I can honestly say I hated the work, and I only took the clients because I needed the money. I think we all get into those places like that. But as you said before, it reminded me, I don't want to do this. This is not the work that I want to do. And I've gotten to the place where this is the work that I want to do. This is who I want to, and I've even to the point now, the people that I know who I want to work with. I know the type of person that I want to be with, and I know the person that I can help, and that I can really, really help you grow your business and, get to that place. But if it wasn't for all of those other steps and this and doing of the this and doing of the this, I don't think I would have ever gotten to this place if I'd have started in my 20s and said, I'm going to own my own business and help people with social media. I never in my wildest dream, of course, in the 80s, social media really didn't even exist. So we have that to contend with, but I do believe that everything's connected. And if we really take a moment to look back, we can actually see the patterns and how everything got connected.
You're absolutely right. I've often done that. I've often looked back and gone, see, when I went to that event and I had that conversation, which introduced me to that person, which took me to that training, which led me to that, and off we go. And that's the kind side of looking back and seeing the connections. But, and this is where we have to, I believe, rest our hands lightly on the steering wheel. We have to have them on the steering wheel. But if we're gripping it so damn hard and so absolutely focused on that's what it's got to look like, then you miss those doors that are opening either side of you. You miss those connections. And you're right. Look, I'm not going to go hugely into the land of woo right now, but
I can woo with you.
yeah, and actually I just started a course, a program here in Sydney a couple of weeks ago called Intuitive Awareness, because I am moving into the woo. But if we look back and have that trust that everything is leading us in the right direction, then it's not out of the ordinary to see those connections that you're seeing right now. And I think from what I'm hearing and what I've experienced as well is that when it comes to those perhaps work we're doing that we're not totally in love with, or clients that we're not the best fit for, I look upon it as like a changing of the guard over time. So when you're first starting out, it might be 50-50. Half the time, great work, great match for clients, and 50% of the time don't like it so much, not so much the best match. But over time, as you get clearer, that starts to shift, and it's like 60-40, and then it's 70-30, and then it's 80-20, and before you know it, but it does take some time, the people that you're working with are a far better match for you because of that evolution that you've gone through. And it sounds like you've experienced that as well.
Yes, I really have. Like I said, if you would have asked me in college where I thought I would be at this point in my life, I would never, even in my wildest dreams, had imagined I'd be sitting here owning my own business as long as I have and helping the people that I have. I just pictured myself working in, I hate even to say the word cubicle.
You escaped.
I escaped, but I did work in a cubicle at one point.
I think so did we all. Yeah. But the other side, which I know you're happy to explore and share with us here, and thank you for that, is we've got the public face. So we've got what it is that we're working on, the business that we're developing, but we're obviously there's the whole personal side of things going on as well, and things that are happening in the background that can make this evolution more difficult or put more demands on us. Everyone's circumstances are different. And with yourself as being a single mum and needing to balance that as a business owner, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced there that I'm sure there's other women listening will be able to relate to as well?
Oh, that was a fun one.
That was a biggie.
That was a definite next chapter. I got divorced when my son was 3. So he was so young that there was still a lot of that daycare stuff. There was still a lot of that wanting to be with my son and taking care of him. And I can remember participating in these, what we call Mommy and Me classes, where you come with your kids and all the moms were there. And the majority of the moms never worked. They were all stay-at-home moms. And sometimes I would have to step outside and take a phone call, or I couldn't be there at the playground that day because I had a meeting. And they would look at me as if I was just like some, who are you to treat your child like that? How can you not pay attention to your child? And then, of course, the irony was that when I would show up at my meetings and they would look at me like, why are you staying home with your child? Your child should be at 24-hour daycare. So it was almost as if I didn't fit in anybody's world. And it felt very lonely sometimes. I didn't get along with the moms who were the Mommy and Me classes. And I didn't get along with the people who were working full time because I kept my son at home with me for as long as I possibly could. Fortunately for me, my son is the type of kid that, especially when he was really young, I could put him down on the ground and put toys around him and he could just sit there for hours. And so I could work, so I would work sometimes when, I would take him someplace and I would bring my laptop. and I would, go here. I could sit, I'd take him to the playground at the mall and bring my laptop. And in my mind, I was thinking, he just knows that his mom is here. He knows that his mother's around him and that we were constantly together. And fortunately for me, he's 13 now, so we no longer have the problem of him having to have his mom around him. As a matter of fact, we're going just the opposite now. Anytime he could just say, "Oh no, Mom, it's okay. You can go keep working for another hour or two. I'm going to sit here and watch TV and play on my phone for a little longer." So now we've gone to the complete opposite. But it was a lot of hard times because I would have to make the decision: do I go to this meeting or do I go to my son's kindergarten recital? So I had a lot of balancing, and it was just me. And there was a lot of times now his father is involved with his life, but in our household, it was just me. And it was always me. And it was always me with the dinner and always me with the bath and always me putting to bed. So my schedule revolved around him. And the older that he got, I received more and more time to work. And then there became daycare, and then there became summer camp, and, so on and so forth. But the very beginning, I think, was very, very difficult, especially the whole idea, like I shared with you earlier. I felt very alone because I didn't fit in with anybody's world, and I didn't have any friends who were in the situation like I was in, and there was nobody to talk to. This is way before, Facebook groups were around where you could find a whole bunch of single moms who were working that you could share your frustrations. And it was it was a lot like my business. There was a lot of trial and error, and I'm sure that I messed up. There's no doubt in my mind that I probably screwed up a whole bunch of stuff with my son. And there would be days where I can honestly tell you, I felt guilty. I felt an enormous amount of guilt when I would leave him in a daycare center and he wasn't around me. And I know that it wasn't the end of the world for him. And he probably actually enjoyed it when I left because he got to be around kids his own age instead of spending his whole day with his mother. But I think there's a lot of emotional things that we go through as a single mom or a mom in general. I wouldn't even lump myself in the one category of being a single mom. Any mom who works experiences the type of emotions that I was feeling as I was trying to sort my way through running my business and raising my son.
It feels like a minefield in general. Yeah. I mean, if we go back there, and just 5 minutes ago, we were talking about the expectations that we put on ourselves of how things should be, just for moving out of corporate and into having our own business, and those expectations that were on ourselves from our parents, etc. Then we've got a whole nother set of, socialization expectations as what it is to be a good mom and what it is to be a good business owner, and that minefield of navigation that we have to go through each and every day. And I love that term, mother guilt. I mean, it was specifically created for us. And,
I think so.
And that whole idea of supporting other women, of recognizing that it doesn't matter what the challenges, it doesn't matter what the responsibility is from a family perspective. We've all got them. And we all internalize them and struggle with them and demonize ourselves to an extent. Even your language before was, I'm sure I've done badly for my son in lots of ways, but I'm sure you've done brilliantly for your son in lots of ways as well. I think about my son's just left for university here in Australia, but my daughter is a similar age. She's 14, and I have memories of daycare and before and after school care when I was building my business and went through that guilt. But there's a flip side to everything. Yes, perhaps there was times when I didn't spend as much time with Charlotte and Cameron, but there was also times when my business allowed me the flexibility to spend a lot of time with my kids. I had a chat to the boss and she said, sure, you can go to that athletics carnival. So off I went. So I think we do need to support each other and use that self-compassion in a big way, that feeling of self-compassion, that practice of self-compassion, that we're all doing the best we can. And I absolutely believe that as a concept.
Yes, I would agree with that. It's taken me a while to get to that place where I have accepted that I've done the best that I can. And I look at my son now, and he's a very respectful young man, and he gets good grades. He doesn't get in trouble. If you were to meet him, he gets along with everybody. He's a wonderful kid. And so I look back on it now and I think, well, maybe I didn't mess up that bad.
Yeah, I reckon you've done a pretty good job. And let's talk also about the job that you do for small business owners now, because you found your sweet spot.
Yes.
This next chapter that you're in now is absolutely flourishing and blooming from what I've seen and my own experience of being a client of yours as well in the Pinterest area. So talk to us about what it is that you are so passionate about bringing to the world through your business.
Ironically, it actually stemmed from me being the single mom, because what I do is I help small business owners learn how to fit social media marketing into your crazy busy day. I do not believe that anybody should be spending hours and hours and hours of their time every single day on social media. And I believe that there's a lot of tools out there and a lot of things that we can be doing to be more effective with our time online and to make sure that we're getting good results. So it's not just enough to say, okay, I'm on Facebook or I'm on Instagram. There has to be a strategy involved in a plan and all of those things. And so one of the things that I had learned, and this is I use this term all the time, is I guinea pig myself. And this whole idea of practical productivity tips had come from the fact of me as a single mom and knowing that my time was limited, but knowing full well that I needed to be on social media to grow my business. So I just kind of looked at myself and said, what could I do to make my time more effective? And so I guinea pigged myself. Let me try this. Okay, well, that didn't work. Let me try this. Well, that one worked. What could I do to add on to that? And so I spent a lot of time experimenting and to see what worked and what didn't work. And then started working with clients and realized that the techniques that I had tried and learned on myself would work for everybody else. So that's where the whole thing came about. Ironically, it came from being a single mom and learning how to balance my day and to try to figure out how to make everything work and to try to make sure I could get the social media work in for the day to continue to grow my business.
I love that, and that recognition that it was your own lessons and your own experience that actually lent to the forming of your business offer, of your key line service. And this is what I think is the essence of what I call a next chapter business, is that we are leveraging our life experience, we're leveraging our wisdom, we're sharing the lessons that we've learned, we're showing people the shortcuts, the how to avoid the potholes, because we've fallen into every bloody single one of them, but we found the way out. And so you can help people navigate around, those potholes, and that's what you're doing now. So I'd love to hear some of these productivity tips, because goodness knows that we have this as small business owners, we have this obsession with social media, that a little bit of a love-hate relationship, I think, in some ways, that I've got to be on it, but it's a time sucker. I actually, there's another client of mine, and this is a corporate client I still have, where we did a survey. We do a national survey across Australia each year. And one of the things that we asked was about social media. Can you track your ROI? And and there was a few other questions as well. But the main feeling that came back is, we're investing time, we're investing money, but we've got no idea if it's actually having an impact. And that was like, oh, shivers. That's probably what a lot of people feel on every level. There's this feeling of necessity, but not with necessarily with tangible payoffs. So yeah, talk to us about how we can make the most of that.
I think that where you're starting is the actions themselves and not the final result. So a lot of people that I work with realize that they say, I need to be on Facebook, so I need to do 10 posts a week. And I need to be on Instagram. So this day I'm going to do 2 pictures, and then this day. And they're thinking about the action steps, and they're not thinking about what the end result is. Is the end result, I want people to go to my website so that they can click on my opt-in and get into my sales funnel. Or I want people to go and sign up for my program. So they're looking at it from the steps that they have to take versus the outcome. And if we start with the outcome, and then we reverse engineer it. Let's say that your goal is to get people to get into your email opt-in. I can honestly attest to this, and you probably know exactly what I'm about to say. Pinterest is like the best tool ever to bring people into your sales funnel. And it doesn't matter if you're selling a product or a service. Either one of those. But if you think about it from that perspective, like, I'm going to use Pinterest, but my goal is to get people into my email, to get them down my sales funnel, then you can start thinking about it from that perspective of, what are those blog posts that I'm going to be putting on Pinterest to get people to my site? These blog posts have to have this content. What is the content going to say so I can tell people about who I am and what I do? And when they get to my website, is there something free of value that I can give them? And for them to get that valuable information, they have to give me their email. And it's so detailed and it's so specific, this value, that the person would come to that page and they could look at it and they say, you know what, that's not for me. And if that person says that's not for me, that's even better, because that person will never buy from you anyway. But if that person looks at that email opt-in, or they look at that free valuable content that you're giving them and say, oh my God, that's got me written all over it. I'm downloading this thing right now. So they download it and they get on your email list. There's a really good chance that a person like that, who gets so excited about your free valuable content, that they're going to eventually buy something from you. So the trick of the matter is we're using Pinterest. Pinterest is just the entry point. It's not the final goal. And I think that's where people seem to get lost, is those thinking about the action steps of the social media versus your final goal. And those are the types of steps and plans and strategies, I guess I'm going to encompass it into all those fancy marketing words that I use with my clients to look at it differently. And when we start looking at it like that, we're not spending time just for the sake of spending time. We're being more effective with our time because we have a specific goal in mind.
That's, I think, is vital. It's the effect that I call the cascade effect, or the cascade plan, where if you go straight from vision to tactics, then you'll find yourself doing a hell of a lot of busy work, taking lots and lots of activity all the time, but not getting the traction. Lots of action, no traction, because you've missed the strategy or the goals, and then the strategy that sits underneath it. So I like the way that you've described that. We've gone straight to action, because I relate to that fully. Yeah. So if you pull back up and jump in your helicopter, and I know that you have a specific love for Pinterest because of the engagement and the type of medium that it is. But if someone is jumping up into that helicopter and looking down at the social media landscape, and there's so many modes of transport. There is Twitter, and there is Pinterest, and there is Instagram, and there is Facebook, and so the beat goes on. I think that's the starting point where we can get overwhelmed. There's this feeling of, well, I've got to be on, and I must be on, and oh my God, there's another one and another one. And I've seen clients and friends that have got, they're on 7 different platforms, and no wonder the feeling is of being, strung out. How do you make the choices as to where I should be?
I think it has to do with your customers. As a matter of fact, I just did an online workshop today where I showed people how to focus your time. And the first thing we did was we talked about identifying your customers and who your target audience is, and everything, your demographics, male, female, age, income level, all of those types of things about them. And then what I did was I showed them real statistics, real facts, and I broke down the top 5 social media networks, and that was Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, and showed them the age, male, female, income level of people who are using these social sites. And when your clients or customers fit into the demographics of the social sites, then that's where my customer's hanging out. That's where my customer's spending my time. And so whether you're on all 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, or God knows how many are out there, and there's a ton of them out there. But if you're spending an awful lot of time on Twitter and your customer is on Instagram, there's a reason that you're not connecting and not making that contact with that customer, because you're in the wrong place. You're spending time in a social media site, and this happens to everybody. You're spending time in a social media site because that's where you like to hang out. That's where you enjoy spending your time. And there's nothing wrong with that in a personal level. But if you're trying to find clients and you're trying to connect with more customers, and your customers are hanging out on Instagram and you're spending all your time on Twitter, there's a reason that you are having a disconnect and not reaching the right customers. They're going to continue on with you and buy your programs and download your workbooks and, get into your e-courses. It's about focus.
Yeah, there's the expression that I use is watering hole. You know, where are the watering holes for your most aligned clients, and that's where you need to be. And I think you've also got that balance point again, because you need to market in such a way that is aligned with your talents, your where you're comfortable and can flow freely. Like there's no hiding the fact, I like talking. I love
Yeah.
I love interviewing. I love having conversations, and that led me naturally to a podcast. But I have to go through an education process with my audience because my people are readers, just like me. I devour books. I love books. I eat them morning, night, and noon. So I am still, I think with marketing, well, I know this with marketing, you have two choices. You can either go and take a piece of an existing market, take your little slither, find your niche within that market, or you can create a new market. You can break new ground, and the latter takes longer. So example, with my taking the positioning of being a next chapter business and life mentor, it's like, what the heck is that? And like, it's not exactly something that people Google. Oh, I think I will go and find out if there's a next chapter mentor. So I had to establish a new market, so to speak, as well as taking that slice from the old one. And that's taking more time, but I then have really high ownership of that. People associate that with me now. Same thing with the podcast. I need to put more time in to educate my natural readers that podcasting, listening to podcasts is pleasurable and it's fun and it's easy. That's going to take more time. So there's a little bit of a straddling of the concept here. I'm playing in podcast land because I love it. And are my people here? Not all of them. So there has to be a bit of a migration, but I'll balance that by being in other watering holes where I know my people naturally are. So it's finding that balance between them. So is that a philosophy that rings true for you in terms of finding that balance between what you enjoy doing and where your people are?
I would, yes. And fortunately, what I enjoy doing is Pinterest.
Yay!
I just, because I think for me, I fell in love with Pinterest before I discovered its business potential. It was one of those things, I stumbled on it. I just loved it so much. And and then all of a sudden I just started, posting up some blog posts for my business and started getting traffic. And I thought, this is kind of interesting. Maybe I should keep an eye on this thing.
It's sort of like, suddenly realizing that your best friend is actually really attractive and perhaps you should go out together.
Yeah. It's the same type of thing, yeah.
So what makes Pinterest so engaging? What makes it such a great vehicle for business?
I think it's because it's the visual. We are visual people. If we're given the opportunity, and I always joke around about this, but when you're trying to put a bookcase together and somebody writes out all of these directions, do this, do this, do this, but we will flip through that guide and look for the visual guide of the picture showing us to put A slot in B, and then we'll look around for that C. Where's that screw for C? And we'll follow the picture instead of read the instructions. We're visual people. And so when we're given an opportunity to run a search on something and we get visual results, it just pulls us in. I can't say any more than that. It's just something that I think that humans are drawn to, that we're very visually oriented, and we'd much rather look at beautiful pictures than a whole bunch of text like you'll see in a Google search.
I think you're absolutely right. And I know, just as you were talking, I'm thinking in pictures as I'm listening to you, there is images popping up in my head. And that just seems to be the natural way that our brains work. So thinking of it from that perspective, that it's a visual element and that's what people relate to and get drawn in by, how do we leverage that to connect them back to our business without just, popping up a whole load of pictures that we like the look of, not going straight into action? But what's the strategy, or some tips on the strategy behind utilizing Pinterest and leveraging that natural tendency for us to be visual creatures?
Okay, I'm going to let you in on one little secret. And anybody who follows me knows exactly what I'm about to say. The secret you need to know is this. ...
I'm holding my breath.
I do. Pinterest is not a social media site. It's a visual search engine. So when we use the same strategies as we do for search engine optimization, SEO, We use those techniques. We put in keywords in our pin description. We make sure that what people are searching for when we put our pins on our boards are phrases that people are searching for. When we actually utilize the words that somebody would type into a search onto our content, onto our pins and our boards, as well as even our profiles, people will find us, because Pinterest is turned into this visual search engine, and that's our behavior on Pinterest. We are looking for something. And ironically, I want to say it's about 70% of the people that are using Pinterest right now are actively looking for something to buy. That is their behavior that's happening on Pinterest right now. So while they're up there searching, it's your goal to create your pins and your boards and your profile with these keywords and phrases that people are searching for. So when we have added that in, I call it PEO, Pinterest Engine Optimization. When we optimize our Pinterest content and our Pinterest profiles and our Pinterest boards, people find us because they're looking. They want to find our content. They want to find our boards. They want to find us, and they're looking for us. So when we do these little keywords and phrases into all of our content, we help people find us. And that's the secret. This is not a social media site where I'm going to ask you to go find 10 people to follow and then comment on their links. That's not what we do on Pinterest. What we do is we search and we find, and we want to be found. And I always say to this, if I can't find you, I can't buy from you.
Absolutely true. It's interesting, that idea, and that flips the whole approach to it on its head, and it makes it unique. So just to repeat, just to make sure I've got the wording here right, that it's not a social media site, it's a visual search medium. Is that what you called it?
It's a visual search engine.
Engine as opposed to medium.
That's okay. It's just like Google, but it's visual.
And I guess a lot of people, and we've often been told this when it comes to Facebook, for example, like, why are you on Facebook? You're not on Facebook typically because you're looking to buy. You're on Facebook for entertainment. You're on Facebook to see what your friends are up to. You're on Facebook for a lot of different reasons. And we can become immune or even annoyed by the advertisements, because that's not the behavior that we are exhibiting in that particular medium. Same for, I think YouTube's another good example. God, do I get annoyed when you force me to watch an ad. I am so just occasionally, if I happen to be at the point of a buying cycle for something specific and somehow that turns up in front of me, you may get my interest, but usually I'm just annoyed. So what you're suggesting is that Pinterest has a whole different feel to it, that people are actively searching there for what they're specifically looking for at the moment. So is it more product-based than it is service-based?
It's actually both, because I don't really sell too many products. I've got a couple of workbooks that I sell, like a productivity planner. I'm getting ready to roll that out again. I had it last year, and then I've updated it for this year. But the majority of the things that I'm promoting on Pinterest are my services. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's product over service or service over product. What you want to do with Pinterest is, going back to, I guess, I don't remember where it was. There was a point in our conversation when I had brought up about the email list. One of the best things that Pinterest is able to help us do is to use Pinterest as an entryway into our email list to get people into our sales funnel. So whether you're selling a product or a service, it doesn't really matter, because the idea of it is your emails, their connection with you, they'll eventually, join your Facebook group or sign up to your program. That's what's going to end up selling them, versus, oh, look, I saw that on Pinterest, I'm going to buy it now.
And is it one of those mediums at the moment, this is not a trick question, this is a curious question, that hasn't been as used yet? I can't think of a better word. If we look at the enormous number of Facebook users and the proliferation of advertisements on Facebook, and how Instagram has now been taken over by Facebook, etc., etc. Is Pinterest still a little bit of an open territory, that there's still lots of room to move and breathe and grow there?
Yes, there is. There are actual ads on Pinterest, but because the way that Pinterest is set up, and they did not want the ads to interfere with our experience, because Pinterest is all about the experience. That when I teach a class or when I work with a client, and I'll go through the home feed and I'll scroll through and I say, see if you can find an ad, and they'll just stare at me like I'm losing it, and I'll say, that's an ad. That's an ad. You see, that's an ad. And then they'll go, oh, now I see it. So there are ads that are running on Pinterest. There are opportunities for us to do buyable pins where you can actually buy straight from Pinterest. And that's not just, you don't have to be the great big huge, companies like Target and Macy's to do that. You can be a business, a small business, and set up a buyable pin. You can also do something called promoted pins, where you can spend a little money, just like you would on a Facebook ad, and reach more people that way. So we do have some opportunities to pay some money to grow our reach on Pinterest. But the experience of when you're actually seeing the ad, it's not like Facebook, where all of a sudden you're scrolling down and you're saying, oh, look, cute puppy pictures. Oh, there's my sister's vacation. Oh, what is this? I'm not following this. Oh, it's an ad. It's not invasive in any
that's
way.
more like the interruption marketing that that can really be frustrating to us.
Yes,
As you're describing this, and it's always interesting hearing people talk about the things that they're doing in their businesses that they love, then your whole energy is just like going up about 50 notches, because Pinterest is such, because it's fun for you, isn't it? It's like that. And I think that is one of the glorious things about having your own business, about moving into your next chapter in this way. We do get to choose the things that are most enjoyable for us. I think understanding that creating a business isn't easy. I mean, I'm not all buttercups and rainbows here. It's not easy. We have to work. It takes time. It takes attention. It takes a lot of energy. But my philosophy is that if it's going to be all that, it's so much easier if you're applying that to something that you really enjoy, to something that you really love, to something that gets you excited when you talk about it. And it certainly sounds as though you're firmly in that court.
Yes, a little bit.
So tell me, my darling, if we want to find out more about your own services in this business of yours, there's obviously that combination between the better use of your time and the productivity, but then the passion really flowing through into the social media platforms, but Pinterest in particular. You have such depth of knowledge. I've experienced it myself in having one of your Pinterest sessions with you. So can you just share with us and everyone who's listening now how they can find out more about you and your world?
Yes, you can go straight to my website, and I know you might need to put a link someplace about this, because I'm going to spell this out. It's not my name. The website is called Inner Social Media-ness. So it's INNER, Social Media-ness. And it came from a discussion that I had years ago with a designer. And I had told her that I wanted to build a website that showed people how to use social media as themselves and to be authentic with the way that they use social media. And I said, how sometimes I'm proud of the fact of my inner weirdness. And then we were talking about that. And I said, like people could have their inner weirdness. They could have their inner social media-ness. And she just thought that was the funniest thing. And then the more that we talked about it, the more I said the word, the more I liked saying the word. And so my whole website is now built around the idea of inner social media-ness, how it's your experience with social media. It's not what the experts are telling you. It's not the templates and the cookie cutter work that you need to do. It's about you and your schedule and your time and your customers and your business. What's your inner social media-ness?
Now, this is one of the reasons, Penny, why I love your whole approach, and which is one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you. We're so aligned in this way. I hugely believe that your marketing has to be wholehearted. And by that, it's aligned with who you are. It's authentic. It's you sharing your story. It's you. You need a framework. So we need, guidance from someone like you as to how to best utilize a platform. But once you've managed that skill set, then just bloom. Just be you, because that's when people who then are exposed to your philosophy and your approach and the way you show up in the world, they'll either align with that or they won't. As you said, they'll either come into your funnel, see what it is that you have to offer and opt in for it, or they won't. Either way, that's perfect. We need to polarize, to mesmerize. We need to do that. And that's, I love your approach, because it's exactly how I feel as well. So yeah, enough of me loving Penny. Let's keep on going. So into socialmedianess and .com, and I'll make sure that link is in the show notes as well when people come along and look at this episode. And I guess we can probably find you on Pinterest and other social media platforms as well.
Yes, and that's actually my name, which is PENNEYFOX. Thank my mother for spelling my name different. So,
makes it easier to find you for sure.
Two E's in my name.
What would you encourage people, like in terms of the different resources that you have, if we're stepping into utilizing social media in a way that is productive, is authentic, and gets us started or even refines what we've been doing, do you have a particular resource that you would point people towards to get started?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have a free email course that when you go to my website, you'll see in a couple of spaces, but there's also going to be a big, huge pop-up that'll show up when you go to the site. And it takes you through 7 steps. A lot of that has to do with what I had talked about earlier about finding your focus, understanding who your target audience is and where they hang out, and then shows you some steps about how to create a targeted marketing message. So that's a really great place to start for people who are just not real sure if they're in the right place and they're doing things right. Because what happens is when you go through this process, you then become more effective with your time and you're not wasting those moments, and your time is valuable. And you're not wasting your valuable time online just posting and hoping this will be it. This is the one that's going to go viral. This one.
So the end of the post and hope strategy.
Yes.
So that's a free email course. What's the name of that one, Penny?
It's called Social Business Builders.
Social Business Builders. Brilliant. I'll make sure I pop a link in for that as well, because that sounds really valuable. Mm-hmm. And so as you're rocking along into this year, this fully flourishing next chapter now, if you were thinking of the woman who's listening to you right now and going, I love this, and mm-hmm. I want to move in this direction. I want to listen to my heart, have the experiences, take the leaps, take the risks, find out what I don't want to help me decide what I do want. What do you think is one of the strongest pieces of advice or wisdom from what you've learned on this journey that you could share with someone who perhaps is just starting out?
Just because you don't know how to do it doesn't mean that you should say no. Mm. Think about how wonderful your world could be if you said yes.
Let that one land. Instead of thinking what could go wrong, think about what might go right. Mm-hmm. What might go right? Well, thank you so much for spending your time here with us today. You've just shared some beautiful insights into the journey that you've been on, and then so generously shared some of that expertise, of which you obviously have a great depth of knowledge and experience. So I really encourage people to go and have a look at your site and to take the Social Business Builders course so you can start to leverage your time online as Penny suggested. So thank you so much, Penny, and I know that we'll stay connected both in my next chapter Facebook group. You're so welcome. I've really enjoyed it. And for you listening, as I was saying, please visit Penny's site. Please approach social media in the way that's been suggested here. Don't just start with actions. None of this post and hope type approach now. Choose those mediums that are not only a watering hole for your type of clients, but ones that you feel that you can enjoy and flourish in as well. And just be authentic online. That's what we're looking for. We're wanting to connect with people that mirror our own values. And that's where you will attract your most aligned clients, when you let down the guard, when you let the real you shine through, and we can really connect to who you are. Because people do business with people that they know and they like and they trust. And that is you. You've got such a lot to share. So don't hide your light under a bushel, as they say. Get it out there on Pinterest. There's a new philosophy for the 21st century. So thanks again for spending your time listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. And I will speak with you again very soon. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspas.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.